The courthouse smelled like polished wood and cheap cologne, a mix that made my stomach churn. As I stepped inside, I straightened my tie, acquired from a friend because I didn't own one, and surveyed the room. There she stood, 2 rows ahead. Her dark hair twisted into a neat ponytail, the familiar smirk playing on her lips. My wife sat next to a lawyer who appeared like he charged by the syllable, his suit sharper than the betrayal I'd been carrying for months. Her mother was there, too, perched like a vulture in her pearl necklace, talking just loud enough for me to catch it. "They'll try to gild her again. Watch!" I wanted to shout, to tell them all how wrong they were, but I kept my mouth shut. My hands clutched the folder in my lap, the edges worn from nights spent staring at it, wondering if I had the guts to use what was inside. 10 years. That's how long I'd poured everything into her ambition. Her health studios now studded the city like sparkling trophies. I'd worked 3 jobs to make it happen. Hauling concrete at construction sites, running delivery routes until midnight, and drafting logos on a damaged laptop until my eyes burned, all so she could have her empire. And now, she sat there, laughing with the audience as she labeled me a leech. "He doesn't even have a genuine job," she remarked, her voice light, like she was tossing off a joke at a dinner party. The room giggled, and I felt the heat crawl up my neck. But I wasn't here to play the victim. I wasn't here to plead. I'd spent a decade creating something with her, believing we were a team. But the second her studios started hauling in millions, I became invisible, worse, an inconvenience. She'd rewritten our story, made me into some deadbeat who just tagged along for the ride. The judge slammed his gavel and the room quieted. My lawyer, a person I could hardly afford, leaned down and said, "You ready?" I nodded, but my eyes kept on her. She didn't even glance my way, too busy whispering to her attorney, probably contemplating how to sell this to her fans online. Wellness Guru Battles Greedy Ex would make a fantastic title, wouldn't it? But I wasn't greedy. I wasn't even furious. Not anymore. I was tired. Tired of being erased. Tired of lying. I hadn't given up everything for her. The folder in my hands felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of all those years. Inside was 1 sheet of paper, 1 signature, 1 promise she'd forgotten. But I never would. I found it in a storage box a month ago, buried under old tax returns and the first sketches I made for her studio logo, back when we were just 2 kids in love, dreaming big over quick noodles. The judge called my name, and my throat clenched. This was it. I stood, my legs solid despite the nervousness rushing through me. The room watched, waiting for me to fumble, to prove her right. But I wasn't leaving this courtroom empty-handed. Not today. I handed the packet to my lawyer, who gave me a slight nod, like he knew what this moment meant. As he walked toward the bench, I caught her mother's glance. She looked smug, convinced I was about to embarrass myself. Let her think that. Let them all think that. I sat back down, my heart hammering but my thoughts clear. The page in that folder wasn't just a contract. It was proof. Proof of what I'd given, what I'd built, what I deserved. The lawyer gave it to the judge, and I observed her face for the first time since I walked in. Her smirk faltered, only for a second, like she sensed something was coming. She didn't know what yet, but she would. Soon, everyone in that courtroom would. I leaned back in my chair, the sounds of the courtroom dissolving into a soft hum. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in charge. Not of her, not of the studios, but of my own story. And now, I was going to start telling it. Me to the stand. And I walked up, my boots heavy on the floor. I pledged to tell the truth, my voice steady, despite the eyes boring into me. She wanted me to describe what I'd done for the studios, and I didn't hold back. I explained about the construction jobs I'd worked to afford the initial lease, the delivery routes I'd run to cover rent, the evenings I'd spent developing logos and flyers as my wife slept. I told them how I'd patched pipes, hung mirrors, talked with vendors, all of it. All of it. Because I believed in her dream. My voice didn't waver, but my throat clenched when I stated, I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I thought we were building something together. The room was quiet now. No murmurs. No smirks. Camille asked me about the $75,000, and I explained how it came from my uncle's estate, how I'd handed it up without a second thought, since I trusted her. I looked at my wife then, only for a second, and saw something flicker in her eyes. Shame, maybe, or just astonishment that I wasn't the pushover she'd depended on. Her lawyer tried to rattle me on cross-examination, questioning why I'd waited so long to suddenly claim my risk. You never mentioned this contract before, he remarked, his tone oozing with suspicion. I leaned into the mic and said plainly, I didn't believe I'd need to. I trusted her to remember what we constructed. He didn't have much to say after that. When I stepped down, Camille gave me a slight nod, her eyes signaling we'd landed a hit. My wife's squad scrambled, their confidence shattering like thin ice. Her lawyer stood again, attempted to frame the contract as a mistake, argued it was old, irrelevant. But the judge wasn't buying it. He held the paper up, his voice dry as he said, This looks pretty clear to me. I sat back at the table, my pulse steady now. The room that had laughed at me weeks ago was silent. The air, thick with a new kind of tension. My wife wouldn't meet my eyes, her hands twisting in her lap. Judith sat rigid, her whispers gone for the first time. I felt viewed, not as the loser they'd painted, but as the man who'd constructed something substantial. Camille bent over, her voice low. We've got them on their heels. This isn't over yet. I nodded, my hands unclenching. I wasn't here to destroy anyone. I was here to stand up, to prove I wasn't invisible, and right then, with that contract on the judge's desk, I knew I'd done it. The courtroom had a strange pulse now, like the tide had turned and everyone could sense it. I sat at the table, my hands lying on the wood, no longer holding the edges like I was clinging on for dear life. Across the room, my wife's face was a mask, but I could see the fissures, her jaw stiff, her eyes darting to her lawyer like he was supposed to produce a miracle. Her mother sat behind her, stiff as a statue, her normal grumbling muffled by the weight of what had just happened. The contract I'd acquired from that ancient storage vault had changed everything, and Camille wasn't about to let the momentum slip. She stood, her voice clear and steady, and started setting out the rest of our case, piece by piece, like she was building a house no one could tear down. I'd spent the previous week digging through old files, bank statements, everything I could find to back up what I'd said. On the stand, Camille had warned me. Her crew would try to twist the truth, make it sound like I was some opportunist after her money. So we came prepared, equipped with proof that showed just how much I'd paid into those studios. She started with the bank transfers, putting them on a screen for the court and jury to see. Every month for years, my paychecks, from building, delivery, freelancing gigs, had gone straight into our shared account, the same one that funded her previous site. These aren't loans, Camille said, referring to the records. These are contributions, made without expectation of reimbursement, because my client believed he was investing in a shared future. The judge nodded slightly, his pen sliding over his notepad, and I felt a flash of optimism. My wife's lawyer tried to interrupt, stating the transfers were only for domestic costs, but Camille didn't flinch. She pulled up emails, ones I'd sent to vendors in the early days, negotiating discounts for yoga mats and lighting equipment when I was on my lunch break at a construction site. One email, from me to her, said, "Got the mirrors for half price. Should be up by Saturday." I remembered writing it. my hands filthy from moving timber, thinking I was doing something good for us. Seeing it blown up on a screen made my chest ache, not from sadness, but from the clarity of how much I'd carried. The jury leaned forward, their features shifting, from bored to intrigued. Camille kept going, her voice steady. She flashed texts where I'd arranged with contractors to fix. Leaks at the Brooklyn studio, photos of me painting walls at the Manhattan location.